This is exactly how Texas A&M is going to beat St. Mary's tonight.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Matt Galatzan. On today's show, we will discuss some big announcements for Texas A&M players McKenzie Mbako and Marcus Hill. Give you 5 things you need to know about St. Mary's before the matchup tonight. And also, we open with 3 ways to beat St. Mary's tonight. I am joined by Zach Dimmitt. Zach, this is a matchup for Texas A&M that I am not entirely comfortable with because St. Mary's is almost the antithesis of what Texas A&M is as a team. They like to play slow. They're big. They're not a team of pace, I should say, like Texas A&M is, and that's okay. There are ways to get around that and ways to beat a team like that. And I think that the first one that we've talked about this a couple of times this week. I've talked about it with Harrison. I've talked about it with you. I think you need to control the pace of the game. That is number one. Control the pace of the game. Make sure this thing stays up tempo. So a team that is not used to running like you run, especially like even on defense, press the hell out of them like you like to do. Like keep the whole thing up tempo in a baseline to baseline game. And that could wear down St. Mary's because they're not used to playing that way. And I think that it could play to your advantage.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely been a talking point leading into this game is the clash of styles is pretty notable because normally, when it comes to a typical matchup in college basketball, the tempo may not vary so drastically because there's so many teams and most of them aren't going to be at the top or at the bottom of tempo. But when it comes to St. Mary's and A&M, it kind of is playing out that way because St. Mary's is 298 out of 365 teams in tempo according to KenPom, and A&M is 29 in tempo. So that shows you how different these two teams are and what they try to do. Which one's better, slow style or a high up tempo style? It really just depends on what your personnel is. And so I think that as a coach, you have to adjust to what your personnel is. But with these two coaches, I think that they know what their style is, regardless of who the players are in the team. And so that's just what you're going to see tonight in Oklahoma City. The thing about tempo is that fast or slow pace doesn't necessarily mean success. I mean, the slowest team in the country is Niagara, and they had 8 wins this season. The fastest team in the country was Cal Poly. They had 14 wins and didn't make the tournament. So it really just depends on how you execute these sort of things. And I think the A&M can have an advantage with the up tempo because of their. I think they're more athletic, and they, in my opinion, have the more talented team. But how it's all executed, that's going to play a factor, obviously. And so St. Mary's, if they're executing their style a lot better than A&M's executing theirs, St. Mary's obviously, is a successful team. They're a higher seed than A&M, so they can definitely find a way to win this game. But I think if A&M plays to their strengths, it sounds like a cliche, but they play to their strengths and play to the ceiling that we know this offense can hit, which we've seen them do multiple times this season, but there have also been some inconsistencies. I think A&M will be able to win this game, not only come out with the victory, but I think they have the chance to win comfortably if things fall their way.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Another big one for me here, Zach, too, is hitting your threes. This has been a very inconsistent thing for Texas A&M over the last couple of weeks, not for the season. They finished, I believe, 3rd in the SEC in 3-point percentage in the regular season, but over the last couple of weeks, things kind of took a little bit of a dip. I'm specifically referencing guys like Ruben Dominguez. They need Ruben Dominguez to hit some big shots from deep. He can't play 25 minutes and attempt 2 shots and go 0 of 2 from 3 if Texas A&M is going to win this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. We've talked about Ruben Dominguez a lot. I think that he's kind of like a March Madness sort of X factor kind of player, where you could see him potentially hit some clutch shots, but he could also be disappearing because we've seen that from him. He's been a little up and down. So if he's playing the way we know he's capable of, I definitely think A&M has a good shot not only to beat St. Mary's but potentially beat Houston in the second round. But we got to get past St. Mary's first, of course.
Yeah, Houston's a scary team, by the way. They're really, really good. Kingston Flemings is unbelievable. All right, and then my final one, and this is a bit cliche, I think, Zach, but it is March. There's madness that happens. We already saw it in the first 4. Embrace the underdog mentality. I think that that's huge. Like, Bucky McMillan has done a great job, I think, with that all year. Like, basically, like, hey, everybody picked us to basically finish last in the SEC or one of the bottom 3 in the SEC or whatever the case may be. Not only did we exceed those expectations, we finished 5th in the SEC. Now everybody's doubting us against St. Mary's. Let's embrace the underdog mentality. We are, even though we earned our spot, we are lucky to be here. And we need to basically play like we have our backs against the wall. Nobody's going to believe in us. And I think if they do that, if they play with urgency in that sense, I think that they've got a really good shot tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that people in College Station and A&M fans in general probably don't necessarily feel like they're the underdog, because I do think that if you are to play a 7 seed, you'd prefer to be St. Mary's over some of these other teams, because I do think there's a talent discrepancy there where A&M has the advantage. But at the end of the day, you are kind of an underdog because you're the lower seed, of course. And I don't think many college basketball people expected A&M to not only make the tournament, but be a team that even avoids Dayton. They were right into the bracket. And so you already proved people wrong, but you also don't want to then drop out right away in the first round, because it's already a successful season that you got to this point. But losing in the first round against a team that you're, I think, very capable of beating, it is not going to be seen as a success right away, even though it may, in hindsight, feel like it was a successful season to get to this point. But yeah, you got to embrace the underdog mentality. I agree with you, because, I mean, even if you're not technically seen as the underdog, regardless of what betting odds and things say, finding a way to feel motivated and find that self-motivation can be a strength for a team. And so I think that can be a recipe for success.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a tough matchup tonight, and there's a lot of reasons for that. St. Mary's is a really good team. They're 27-5, and there's a few things that I think everybody needs to know about them heading into this matchup, and get to know your opponent, so to speak. Welcome to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number 1 pick for the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. Like I've said before, I'm very classic. I kind of tend to bounce between a couple. Today, I'm feeling my number 1 pick to be the grape flavor. Concord grape flavor, similar to a grape juice or candy. Soft, rounded sweetness, smooth, almost syrup-like fruit profile. Consistent, straightforward taste, and a classic purple candy style finish. It's certainly delicious, and I love it. But I also really, really like some of these underrated flavors. Like Confetti Craze, I think, is a really interesting one to me. It's like a sort of a delicious blend of rich and buttery, freshly baked confetti cake, smooth vanilla frosting, and a sprinkle of sweetness in every sip. It's a sweet birthday cake inspired flavor with vanilla frosting, sugary sprinkles, smooth dessert-like taste profile, and it's rich and indulgent sweetness from start to finish. And it's different. That's what I like most about it. It's different. And the most importantly, 5-Hour Energy shots give you a boost with 0 sugar. So find your new flavor at 5-Hour Energy shots at Amazon or at 5hourenergy.com. we need to know a few things about St. Mary's heading into this matchup, Zach. And with a team like St. Mary's, that I would be surprised if a lot of Texas A&M fans watched a lot of St. Mary's games this year because of the conference that they play in. They play late a lot of the time. West Coast games aren't necessarily broadcast very heavily in the Texas time zones. So let's let the fans know what they need to know about St. Mary's. I think that the first thing is that they are, kind of like we talked about this a little bit in the last segment, but they are polar opposites to Texas A&M. They play two completely different styles of basketball. The Gaels are top 10 in defense and are bottom 60 in game tempo and bottom 40 in depth, where the Aggies are top 10 on offense, top 30 in game tempo, and top 20 in depth. And due to the tempo that St. Mary's plays with, it really could cause problems for Bucky McMillan's offense. So making each possession matter will be key. But this is the one that I think is more important of those two. The Gaels are elite at the free throw line. They're one of the best teams in the country. They are the best team in the country, rather. They rank number one in free throw percentage at 81.8%. They are a lethal team at the line. And, obviously in March, when every possession matters, that is going to play a huge difference. And especially considering the fact that Texas A&M ranks 320th in the country in personal fouls per game committed.
Yeah, that's obviously not ideal when you're an A&M team that's going to be committing a lot of fouls, going up against a team that makes the most of their opportunities at the line. So yeah, you mentioned it. Free throws are going to be absolutely big, even if you're splitting one of two a few times. If you're St. Mary's, most of the time they're going to be hitting both of their foul shots, and that adds up after a while. And you could look up at the end of the game and think, wow, A&M's offense actually did pretty good. But St. Mary's got so many points at the foul line, and now A&M's head home, and that could end up being a possibility if you're not disciplined enough on defense. Yeah, I was, when we were about to begin this episode, I remember thinking, oh yeah, St. Mary's is, they're pretty up there with free throw percentage. No, they're number one. Number one. That is absolutely insane. Of course, they're not in the top 50 in like free throw attempts, I believe, unless I'm just completely missing them. So that percentage is going to be increased a little bit because you're not taking as many free throws. Where A&M, they're number 40 in the country in free throw attempts. So naturally, as time goes on and you add more attempts, your percentages go down. But it still says a lot. If you're number one in free throw percentage, they're the only team that's above 80% as a team in free throw percentage. So very impressive stuff there. That's kind of what you expect, I guess, from a team that's going to be as disciplined as St. Mary's is expected to be. Because they have some international guys with experience, and so you're not going to see as many mental mistakes and things like that when it comes to being at the line and having a stone cold approach. So definitely something to watch tonight.
Absolutely, and it's free throws are you can't have any empty possessions against St. Mary's, because if you foul them on the other end, which you have a tendency to foul, it looks like it's going to end up biting you. So you're going to have to play, I don't want to say play conservatively defensively, because I think you need to keep up your full court press and all those things, but you can't send them to the line or they're going to bite you. And I really think that's important. Another one real quick, the Aggies on defense, they won't have to worry as much with St. Mary's about defending the 3-point line, because St. Mary's doesn't take a lot of threes. They rank 259th in 3-point attempts per game at 20.7 and 150th in 3-pointers made per game with 8. So St. Mary's is going to try to beat you inside and in the mid-range. And that's where Texas A&M, I think, really has to lock themselves down defensively, because they don't exactly defend the paint that they don't have that big shot blocker that can go up against a 7'2" guy like St. Mary's has.
Yeah, that is definitely going to be a concern. I talked about the talent overall that A&M has, but at the end of the day, in the front court, it is going to be a disadvantage unless Bucky McMillan suddenly decides, which I doubt he will, suddenly decides that Jamie Vincent and Federico are impactful players in the rotation, which it clearly has, been emphasized that they are not seen as that. And so I wish that were different, because I think Jamie Vincent can have an impact to March Madness due to his size and his length. But you never know. Maybe he'll throw something out there that we don't expect. But for the most part, it seems like Jamie Vincent and Federico won't be impactful players for this front court. So you're going to have to just lean on Zach Clements or Rashawn Agee, and Andrew McKeever, St. Mary's center. He is 7'2", 285. My goodness, dude. And he leads the team in rebounding, obviously, at 9.2 per game. So I'm not sure that even if Jamie Vincent were active and being in the rotation, I mean, he is active, but if he's getting minutes, I don't even think he's going to be able to stop McKeever. So that's going to be something to watch for sure. And something else I kind of wanted to point out, you mentioned the 3-point attempts for St. Mary's. If they're taking less 3-point attempts, their offense typically is probably going to be more efficient because your shots are closer. It's a pretty simple philosophy. Where with A&M, they are 14th in the country in 3-point attempts per game. So that can be a good style to live with if you're hitting your shots. If you're taking lots of threes and they're not going in, it's obviously a less efficient shot. If you're taking a lot of threes and it's not going in, you're going to have a pretty rough day. But at the end of the day, your ceiling is also higher if you're hitting those shots. And that's why we've seen A&M's offense have some good games, but also have some pretty underwhelming games on offense. They can have a high ceiling, but also a low floor due to their style of play. And so it will be interesting to see. We'll probably see St. Mary's offense is a little bit more efficient, where A&M's offense has the volatility to potentially not be as efficient, but they can hit that high ceiling. So something to watch for tonight for sure, because when it comes to the March Madness lights, you never know. Either a team can get hot, and that's where you see some of these magical moments, or a team can be a little bit overwhelmed by all the pressure and they don't play up to the style that you expect. So just something to watch for there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just a quick reminder, by the way, for all of our loyal listeners, get your first month of the Everydayer Club free when you use code MARCH. You'll unlock ad-free episodes and entry into our private listener group chat where I'm hanging out daily. Check the link in the show notes or go to lockedonaggies.supercast.com to claim your free month of the Everydayer Club. A couple more real quick, Zach, that I think we need to point out. Rim protection. The Gaels are extremely efficient in rebounding, and they rank 13th in the country in total rebounds per game with 40, and they limit their opponents to 29, which is 29.1 per game, which places them fifth. They get it done offensively and defensively. They place in top 12 in rebound percentage for both sides of the ball. And then, obviously I've talked about how important rebounding is in the past. I think that's critical. Texas A&M is going to have to find a way to combat Andrew McKeever and his elite size and rebounding ability. So we'll have to see if they're able to do that. And then the final thing here, Zach, despite, St. Mary's and their play style being slower and limiting the amount of possessions their opponents get, they don't force turnovers at a high rate. They only average 5.5 steals and 10.1 turnovers per game, which ranks 299th and 300th respectively in the country. So maximize that. They're not going to force you into a ton of turnovers. I think you need to take advantage of that as much as you can.
Yeah, that's a good point. It shows that they're not really going to be an up-tempo defense either when it comes to their style, which is good for A&M. But at the end of the day, their style is their style, and so you take advantage of what you can get. And if let's say A&M's not hitting their 3-point shots like I was mentioning before, because that's what they want to do, at least you're still going to be hopefully maximizing and adding more possessions throughout the game, because you're not going to be having as many turnovers forced. That's where you also want to avoid the unforced turnovers, which includes throwing a ball out of bounds, your foot stepping on the line whenever you're trying to attack a closeout, things like that, where St. Mary's doesn't do anything to get a steal, but A&M just turned the ball over due to their own, fault of their own. So, that's where you want to avoid those kind of things and not give away those extra possessions that you're likely going to have against a team that doesn't force turnovers. So, on the flip side of that too, A&M, because of their kind of up pressure, high pressure and full court press sort of style, they're going to force more turnovers. They're 43rd in the country, tied with like multiple teams with 8.1 steals per game. So obviously not in the top 10 or anything, but when you consider there's 365 teams in Division One, and you're 43rd in steals, that's a pretty good place to be. So we'll see if that makes a difference where A&M can limit their amount of turnovers while also adding more possessions for themselves on defense. I think that's definitely something to watch.
Absolutely. So we'll see what happens. Those are just a few things that you need to know about St. Mary's heading into this matchup. Something else that I think is very important. Texas A&M got a couple of really big announcements from two star players. And I think that everybody should be extremely excited about it. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old ways of doing taxes is, well, a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations available nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. The biggest stretch of the college basketball season is almost here. Buzzer beaters, bracket busters, and those unforgettable moments that everyone's talking about the next day. Being there live for something like that, that's bucket list stuff. The hard part is actually getting tickets. Long queues, prices jumping around, and surprise fees at checkout. The Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's incredibly simple to use. The Game Time guarantee means 100% legitimate tickets delivered on time at the best price. And here's the best part. Fees are included in the price you see, and what you see is what you pay, period. The seat view feature is a game changer. You can see a panoramic view from your exact seat before you buy. Zone deals let you pick the section and save even more while Game Time selects the seats. And I love being able to follow teams in the app and get alerts when new deals drop. No stress, no guesswork, just a smooth experience from start to finish. That's exactly what you want during the best part of the season. Take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, Zach. We've previewed the game. Everybody knows everything they need to know about tonight's matchup. We also got some very exciting news, though. Marcus Hill, one of Texas A&M's best player, arguably their most consistent offensive player for the majority of the season. He said that he is going to submit an eligibility waiver after the season, which, if approved, would grant him another year with Texas A&M. He said, "I love Aggie land, so I'm really hoping I can get it." That would be massive, I think, for Texas A&M, not just due to the consistency with which he played for the majority of the season, but just in terms of continuity with this team. I mean, obviously, this was a whole new roster coming into this season. Nobody had ever played together before, and having him back, he's your third leading scorer, 10.8 points per game. That would be massive, in my opinion. I mean, you kind of look at his game log, and there was a stretch where, he, especially from the end of January until really the end of February, that entire month of the season, he was in double figures way more often than not. Games of 15, 18, 17, 20, 14, 10, 17. Like, he was right there. He has not played particularly efficiently offensively over the last 3, but I will take the long season of consistent play over anything else. So that would be massive for Texas A&M. Another one that during the same locker room interview, credit to Carter Corrales from Gig'em 24/7 for getting this info. McKenzie Mbako also said he 100%, no questions asked, 100% plans to return to the Aggies after the season. He said it's been amazing to watch what Texas A&M has accomplished despite only playing 7 games this year. He came into this season as, I think without a doubt, like who you expected to be your best player. He was your best NBA prospect. He was probably going to be your leading scorer. Both of those guys back on the roster next year. Sign me the F up, Zach.
Yeah, it's been a long season, and so I think maybe some people have forgotten about McKenzie Mbako. And Rashawn Agee has certainly earned the title given the current personnel of being the best player on the team. But if McKenzie Mbako was playing, I think there's a chance Rashawn Agee could still be seen as the best player, but Mbako would certainly be giving him a run for his money because he's an elite scorer. He's got really nice size. He was a McDonald's All-American after all, and that's a pretty exclusive club. So yeah, great news on both ends. Of course, Marcus Hill. We still have to wait and see what that process will look like with getting another year of eligibility. But with McKenzie Mbako, Bucky McMillan had kind of said like a month or 2 ago, I believe it was, that he was going to be coming back. But then hearing that from the man himself certainly goes a long way as well. Yeah, with Marcus Hill, I've been very impressed by him. And the thing about A&M, excuse me, the thing about A&M heading into the season was that there was a lot of guards and that they added out of the portal, and you weren't really sure exactly who was going to step up. You had Jakari Lane, you had Josh Holloway, you had Marcus Hill to that. Rylan Griffin, kind of a wing guard sort of guy as well there. And so who's going to step up? And I think Marcus Hill certainly has done so. I mean, there's been a few games where he's been a little bit more quiet, but you mentioned that stretch that he had, late January in SEC play to late February. 15 points, 18 points, 17 points, 20 points, multiple double-digit games, even getting active on the boards, games with 6 rebounds, 5 rebounds, 6 rebounds, 8 rebounds. I mean, a guard normally isn't supposed to be putting up those kind of rebounding numbers. And especially for a guy that's only 6'3", 192, hey, listen, I wish I was 6'3", but for college basketball, that's a little bit on the smaller side still. So the fact that he's getting so active on the boards like that, he's clearly an impactful player. And the reason that you may look at his career game log or whatever and think, oh, shouldn't he have maybe one more year of eligibility? Seems like he's only played 3 years of Division I. Yeah, but he played 2 years at Southern Union State Community College. I know we've all watched their games throughout the season and followed them closely, but so that's probably where the issue comes in, is those 2 years of community college. He played 1 year at Bowling Green and 1 year at NC State before heading to A&M. And this guy was a 20-point scorer at Bowling Green in 23 and 24 seasons. So, no one expected him to be a 20-point scorer this season for A&M, but his impact has certainly been felt. And I think if you are able to have some sense of roster retention next season, considering how much turnover there was last offseason, I think that'll be huge for A&M. And, so I hope everything goes well with Marcus Hill on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Rashawn Agee, Rylan Griffin, Zach Clements, Jakari Lane, Ali Deba, all of those guys are going to be gone next year. They're all seniors. Marcus Hill also a senior, but he will attempt to file that waiver. That still leaves you a pretty decent group of returners if you can pull it off. Your potential starting lineup could be theoretically Pop Isaacs, Marcus Hill, Ruben Dominguez, McKenzie Mbako, and maybe Jamie Vinson. And I think that's a really good place to start. That's a really solid starting lineup. Obviously some of these guys could end up leaving, transferring, whatever. But if that is your starting group heading into 2026, 2027, I think you're going to be in a really good spot. And, that's something that's very different from what Texas A&M had heading into this year. And I think it would be a very, very welcome thing for sure. But that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Tomorrow, we will be back to recap the game from tonight. We will also talk spring football because it starts tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Aggies to get all the latest episodes. You can find us on X, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked On Aggies. You can also find me on X at Matt Galatzan, Zach on X at Zach Dimmitt 7. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Aggies ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonaggies.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On College Basketball, and we'll see you tomorrow.